listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, today, we have another show lineup for y'all. We have a special guest that's going to share a powerful topic. If you didn't know, May 30th, that marks National Men in Grief Day. We're going to be discussing this with Warren Kozak and his book that we're going to also cover, Waving Goodbye, Life After Loss. We're going to learn everything about him, his background, and everything that he's doing to empower those to be inspired. So once again, Warren, thank you for your time. How are you doing today?
Shamaya, thank you for everything you've done and helping people through so many different problems and issues.
You are a award-winning journalist and the author of the book that we'll be discussing, Waving Goodbye, Life After Loss. Before we go into your book, share with the audience a little bit about yourself, your professional career.
I spent the first half of my career as a writer for different anchors at ABC News, something I wanted to do, I think, when I was 8 years old. And the second part of my career, I have been working as a speechwriter for one person, a philanthropist. I live in New York. I grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin. But to be honest, the greatest title I have ever had is husband and father.
I love that, because in this world of social media, it is always in our face as far as what is the next guy we have to beat? What's the next woman we have to beat? We're always racing to be the top of the top. And there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes, like you just said moments ago, the best two titles could be a husband and a father. And
I can't think of anything better or more important, frankly.
There's an honor with that can't be put into words. For yourself, at what point in time did it hit you when it's like, wow, this is something I get to do. I get to lead this.
I wish I could tell you, Shamaya, that I knew this all along. I didn't. And it was much, much later, after my wife passed away. I had the chance to go on a brief vacation with our daughter. And it was one of those situations where we actually had time together. And we were sitting at dinner one night, and she asked me a question that kind of stunned me. And she said, so at that, she's 25 now. I'm guessing she was about 21 then. She was in college. And she asked, did you achieve the goals you set for yourself when you were my age? And I was kind of floored. I didn't have an answer. And I said, let me take the question. Let me think about it. And I thought about it. And the next morning, I got up and met her for breakfast. And I said, I am completely shocked by what I've come up with to your question. Great question. I was trying to remember what I even wanted when I was your age, when I was 21. And I was thinking, would I be rich? Would I be famous? I have no idea what that even meant, fame, when I was 21. And I said, the things I am most proud of at this point in my life are things I never would have imagined when I was 21. What are they? They are that I stood by your mother through her illness. I was a faithful husband, and I hope a good father. And I never thought I would have been saying those things when I was her age. And I said, good question, but you have to grow into the answer.
Wow. And that's a statement. If there was one, you have to grow into that. And I feel like that's how life sometimes throws curveballs at us. We don't have an instant short answer that, Oh, okay, that was easy. And then you can live with that for the rest of your life. Sometimes it's a process of answering the call, if you will.
And rest assured, you're going to get some curveballs thrown at you.
And how did you begin to navigate the complexities of the loss of your wife? And what resources did you find most helpful for you?
There's the question. Let me give you some background here. My wife was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer in 2014. And our daughter was then 15 years old in high school. And we thought it was not a killer cancer, that, she would be able to cope with it and treat it like a chronic illness. That wasn't the case. It turned really bad, and the last 4 years of her life were really awful. I had to stay by her side, not had to, I wanted to. I was very fortunate to have a boss that let me work remotely from the hospital room mostly. And I was very lucky. I had a health insurance plan, that took care of this for the most part. And I cannot imagine what it must be like for someone to lose someone and not have that kind of support. The last 4 years were horrible. I kept thinking, well, this can't get much worse, and then it would get worse. But then after she passed away, and that was on January 1st, 2018, those days look good to me. Her sickness days look good. Losing her was the most profound thing that ever happened to me. And I was shocked by that. During the illness, doctors told me she wouldn't survive. I tried to imagine what my life would be like afterwards. And what I write in the book is that's like thinking of infinity. Your mind can only go so far, and then you kind of stop because you don't have the bandwidth. So those early days after she died, I was just lost. My brain wasn't functioning properly. And I've heard from a lot of other widows and widowers, people who have lost. I have a younger cousin who just lost her 22-year-old son in a stupid accident. And she agreed, you're kind of in a brain fog. During those days, I looked for any kind of material that might help, and people dropped off books, but most of them were written by psychologists and psychiatrists in this very academic style that I'm sure you're familiar with, that I found impossible to read even when I was in college. I certainly couldn't read those books. Maybe they helped other people, but they didn't help me. It was only 5 years later that when I had some perspective that I was able to realize what had helped, what didn't help. And I wrote this book in very short chapters, the most understandable language I could come up with, knowing that people right after they lose someone are having the same problem. And I've heard this from so many people that they lose their concentration. They can't focus. So that's how I wrote this book. That's how I wrote Waving Goodbye.
Once again, listening to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest, Warren Kozak. You can go to his website, warrenkozak.com. We're talking about his book, Waving Goodbye, Life After Loss. There are times that memories, I'm a visual person, and I feel like memories are paintings that we hold on to throughout our life, whether they're good or bad. For you as an individual, what are some of the memories that you cherish and you hold on to, not just to celebrate your wife, but to always remember her in a good space?
That's really a good question. And especially when you said memories, good and bad, you get both. Let's be honest. Right after Lisa passed away, I was traveling, and I travel a lot for work. And I met up with someone who lost his wife also very recently, 4 younger kids. And he gave me some advice. He said, sell your home, sell everything in it, buy a new place, get new furniture. Otherwise, your home will become a museum to your late wife. I did not take his advice. I thought that may have worked for him. That would not work for me. What I described was right after my wife died, I took my daughter back to college. We had 7 days. In the Jewish religion, you have something called Shiva, which means 7, and people come to the house. And it's really a remarkable thing. I never realized the importance of it. And every religion, every culture has some variant of this, where people come to the house, they bring food. And at a time when you really need people to support you, you have that support. So after that was over, and I took her back to school, and I offered to have her stay with me take the semester off. She said no, she would be better off being with her friends, and I think she was right. I came back, I opened the door to my home, and I was hit by the most deafening silence of my life. And here I was in a very familiar space where, it was filled with life. It was, raising a child, you've got skin knees and board games and trying to get the kid to school in the morning and trying to get yourself to work and getting dressed up for fancy parties. And then all of a sudden I was there by myself, all by myself. And it was so silent. And that was probably the lowest point of my life. However, now having said that, it's now 6 years. 6 years later, I love coming home, and I love being in this home because this is the home where I brought Lisa for the first time. It's the home where we came here after our wedding that night before we went off on our honeymoon. It's the home where we brought our daughter home from the hospital. It's the home filled with fabulous memories for me. And I love being here. So I'm so glad I didn't take that fellow's advice and sell everything and start from scratch somewhere else. I would have been miserable. I love being here, and I love living with all those memories.
They say home is where the heart is. And when we carry that peace with us, I feel that sometimes people will always feel that as well. And we carry our home wherever we go. And I will actually go one more step on that one. I think this home is where 3 hearts are. Yeah. Mine, my wife's, and my daughter's, our daughters. Yeah. And with that thought, when you wrote the book, I want to remind our listeners that May 30th marks the National Men in Grief Day. In writing this book and sharing your very intimate personal life and experience and how you had to get through the rough times, the rough patches in life. Someone who reads this and maybe they have experienced some sort of grief, what's one core message that you hope that they can understand and appreciate from your book?
I'm going to say something that I don't think I would have believed in those early days. And it's that it does get better. And in those early days, I thought this is the way it was going to be for the rest of my life, because the reason I am feeling this pain, the situation that created the pain is not going to be alleviated, because that person is not going to walk back into the door the way she did 1,000 times before. So I thought, well, okay, this is the way it's going to be. What I did now in retrospect, which helped the most, was putting on my socks every morning and getting myself up and going to work. And when I say going to work, I live in New York City, so I have to deal with people on the subway. I have to deal with people on the street. You are forcing yourself back into the world. That actually helped. After a year, I think the absolute pain in missing her started to ease up a little bit. It was better after 2 years and better still after 3. And then, Shemaiah, there was one day I was walking down Madison Avenue, and it was one of those gorgeous fall days. You know, one of those days that are just so spectacular. And even the people on the street I saw smiling. You don't see that too often right now. And I had my AirPods in my ears, and I was hearing the most gorgeous piece of music. And I suddenly realized something. I thought, whoa, I'm actually happy. I am happy. I never thought I would say that. And I hadn't won the lottery. It wasn't anything special. I was just walking down the street on a beautiful day, and I could enjoy it, and I was happy to be alive. And that was really the first realization of that.
I like the title of the book, Waving Goodbye, because, like I said in the green room, at some point, all of us are going to experience grief. I remember when I was in 5th grade and I lost my grandmother. I was bitter for a while because I was young. But then I was happy because I realized she was able to at least see the oldest child, my brother, graduate high school. And I was like, well, at least she got to see that. And he did very well and is still doing well.
I love that.
And I feel like sometimes when we get the pain, we have to realize it's not meant to stay, but to pass through and take its course. And as long as we allow it to take its course, then that other side of light, hope, healing, it'll eventually come through.
I think you just touched on one of the biggest issues that I came to understand, and I write about this later in the book, and it was gratitude. And I realized how unbelievably lucky I was to have met this woman in the first place. And you know, it was really random. You know, we're from different states, different professions, and we happen to have one friend in common. And that one friend decided they were going to invite us both for dinner so we could meet each other. I mean, how lucky and how random in some ways. Although if you are religious, and I am, you know, I have to believe there was an upper hand in it all. But I have thought I could have easily gone through my life as a single guy, or I have friends that don't have good marriages. I had a great marriage. I have friends that are desperate to have children and have had trouble having children. And I have a fabulous daughter. And I thought it would be just arrogant of me then to complain after getting all of these gifts. So I am so grateful that I had Lisa in my life. And most days that gratitude can cover the loss. Not every day. I'll be honest. I still backpedal some days. And some days I don't even understand why, but most days I'm grateful.
There's a saying that I might have to paraphrase a little bit, but just on top of my head, think about the conversation we're having, is that it's better to have love and loss than to have never loved at all. And
yes, yeah,
I feel like in today's climate I feel like if there was a podcast in the biblical days or any other times before, they probably say a similar thing. In today's time, I feel like every generation has its time of pain. And I feel like it's just a universal thing that can be discussed in today's climate. One thing we can't forget is what you just touched on, gratitude. Because sooner or later, life is going to stop you until you become thankful. And sometimes it takes heartbreaks for us to be grateful. Because if we don't have those heartbreaks, then we might feel like we're the answer to every problem. Like we're the best of the best. And sometimes you got to fall down in order for you to understand that we're all human.
You know, I'm going to quote someone here. It's going to surprise you. It is President Biden. I once heard him speaking, and he was quoting his father. And he said, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how powerful you are. None of that matters. Someday, the world is going to knock you down. And the big question is, how do you get yourself back up again? It's going to happen. It will happen. But the question is, how do you get yourself back up? And I think, well, especially for me, I have a daughter, so I have to be the responsible adult here. And that helped a lot. It helped so much that I could help her get through the loss of her mother when she was a teenager. It'll never go away. It'll be with her forever. But, I think her biggest worry is that something happens to me. And I keep trying, nobody has any control over that. And I just try and tell her I'm going to the gym every day. I try not to do anything stupid. and the rest we have to just have hope and faith that we'll keep going as long as possible.
Once again, listen on Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today, Warren Kozak. And reminder that May 30th marks the National Men in Grief Day. Make sure you get a copy of his book, Waving Goodbye, Life After Loss. And also make sure you visit his website, warrenkozak.com. You can check out his book there and all of his articles and more about him himself. Like always, we thank you for your time, but in closing, what is your last thought you would like to leave with our audience before we turn in?
I want to thank you again so much for having me on and for all the important work that you are doing, Shemaiah. It is so fabulous what you are doing. What I will tell people who may have lost a spouse and are struggling right now, you won't believe this because I didn't believe it, but I'm going to say it again. It will get better. You'll learn how to live with it. You'll learn how to put that loss into a context of maybe a little box where you can visit it when you need to. But you will also have days when you're walking down the street like I did that day, and you will be happy again. And it won't be anything special. It'll just be a nice October day. But my God, what a fabulous gift when you think about that.
Get a copy of the book right now. Is Waving Goodbye, Life After Loss. Powerful story, powerful book. Thank you for your time, Warren Kozak. Like always, this platform, and real fast, I'll keep it short. Refocus Radio started in 2017. And I've been telling people all year this year, you could never told me it would be like this. My mind's always blown every week when I see the list of people I have to interview. And I'm at the point now, I don't even search. It just comes in the inbox now. So whoever's listening to this, you ever feel like you're a failure, it's because you can't quit on yourself. If you keep going, the rest is history. And with that, like always, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are you a business professional looking to share your latest news with a wider audience? Look no further than I Am Refocused Radio. We invite you to submit your press release to be featured on our blog section. With over 2,000 daily visitors, your news will reach a diverse and engaged audience. Best of all, this service is completely free. Simply email your press release to admin@IamRefocusedRadio.com. For guest inquiries or more information, reach out to admin@IamRefocusedRadio.com. Let's amplify your voice together with I Am Refocused Radio. Submit your press release today.